Good morning, frothers, and welcome back to Wheatlow Brewery for another exciting brew day. And we do have some viewers all over the world, and in particular today I'm thinking of you viewers in Australia, because we're going to attempt to do one of your styles of beer today, namely a Pacific Ale. Now, Pacific Ale isn't yet a BJCP official style of beer, so this should be a delicious, light, easy drinking, sessionable beer with lovely fruity, hoppy aromas from Australian and American, in fact, hops. Stick with us in the video. We're going to talk about the recipe, talk about what a Pacific Ale is, brew the beer, and as usual, at the end of the video, we'll taste the beer and tell you all about the froth. So Pacific Ales, although not an official BJCP standard or style, or at least not yet, came about around about 2010 onwards as craft brewers in Australia and New Zealand wanted to make a beer a little bit similar to an American pale ale, but in their own style. Namely, they would make it less caramel malt type flavours, more easy to drink, perhaps more use of more wheat, possibly oats, and they would use this as a nice, delicate canvas on which to show off their hops from Australia and or New Zealand. So this beer is going to do exactly that. The malt bill is really straightforward. It's just Pilsner malt. In fact, today I've got Weyermann standard Pilsner malt at 87.4%, and we're going to put 12.6% of wheat malt in as well. This recipe actually is inspired by Flamin Galah, who's on the tally behind me, and he has 2 episodes about Pacific Ale that's definitely worth watching. And I tried to pay attention whilst watching and put a recipe together that at least, let's say, emulates the beer that he makes, which he says is one of his favourite beers. So the malt bill there of the Pilsner and the wheat is obviously going to be quite light. It's going to help the head retention, the wheat malt is. It's going to be pale in colour. So it's not going to be overpowering to the beer in any sense. So if you think about an English best bitter, that's very much a question of balanced malt with caramel or crystal malts and English hops that balance it. An American pale ale might be less crystal malts but more zingy American hops, and this is a step further where the malt retreats a little bit more and the delicate aroma type qualities of the hops are brought forward, the Australian or New Zealand hops, or hops from the Pacific Rim, hence the name. So in this particular case for hops, what we're going to do is we're going to put a tiny bit of SARS in at the beginning just to really stop a boil over, really. 2.2 IBUs of SARS, and then no Australian themed beer would be complete, would it, without Galaxy? So we're going to do a whirlpool of Galaxy, which is 22.1 IBUs. In my case, that's 300 grams, which we're going to do at 85 degrees. We're going to ferment the beer with SafAle S-04. This is a yeast that, if you're in the UK, you might think of as the typical 90s local microbrewery kind of taste. In an English ale, it gives you a lot of fruity flavor esters from the fermentation, but it is a good yeast to use in this kind of beer, or indeed a hazy New England style beer actually, and it's also very reliable, and it does settle down really well. So this beer may be hazy because of the 12% wheat, but I've got a sneaking suspicion it'll probably be clear by the end of the process. It doesn't really matter if it is hazy. Many brewers do add hazy things into these kinds of beers, such as rolled wheat and things like that, or even oats. So in the dry hop, we're going to use Citra, Mosaic, and a new hop, experimental hop. I've got the bag here somewhere, HPA 4029. So HPA 4029 So that's going to be an interesting hop to use. That's the original intention was to use Citra, Mosaic, and Eldorado. I didn't have any Eldorado, so I've substituted it with that Australian experimental hop, which seems to me pretty ideal. And we've got about 1.5 grams per litre of Citra, 1.5 grams, I'll put it on the screen, of Mosaic, and then we've just got just under 1 gram per litre of the experimental hop. Water profile for this beer is going to be calcium 118, magnesium nothing, sodium 38, sulfates 84 and chlorides 210. So we're 2.5 times chloride to sulfate ratio. This is going to help the malt come a little bit, the delicate malt come a little bit forward, but mainly to soften the harsh bitterness of the hopping so that we're only getting gentle bitterness and the aroma qualities from these hops. So overall from the hopping, we're expecting tropical fruit, we're expecting stone fruit, we're expecting all sorts of juicy stuff, as well as a bit of a citrusy backbone and some berry as well from the Mosaic. So it should be really interesting beer. I'm looking forward to trying it. Right, the whirlpool's just twisting round behind me. I've cooled it down to 85, so I'm going to put this 300 grams of Galaxy in the whirlpool now, and can't wait for the delicious aroma to hit me. In fact, let's put this cup in now and just see. Yeah, straight away, deliciousness. Right, it's transferring now, end of brew day. It's all gone okay. I'm going to put some brewer's clarity in to make it gluten free. About 10 drops. And I'm going to put exactly 2.6 grams of ALDC, just like that, to stop diacetyl forming. So those are my little enzymes, and I think I'm going to put the yeast in now whilst it's splashing about to mix it in and give it a bit of a head start. Right, so I've got my S-04 yeast, 100 grams for this 130 litres, so nice pitch rate. I expect it should get going pretty quick, so I'll stick that in now. Right, so that's the beer all tucked up, just the clean-up to do. And I've got about 20 minutes before the England match starts, so better hurry up. Right, time to dump the cone on the Pacific Ale, and straightforward procedure, sanitize it. Made lots of yeast, this one has, by the looks of it, quite thick, nice looking yeast coming out. Now I think at Flamin Galah, when they made this beer, they want to pitch the hops onto the yeast for biotransformation. I'm just not sure about that technique. I prefer to just get the yeast out. I might be wrong, I probably am wrong, but the couple of times that I've done it, it hasn't really gone that well. So I'm dumping this, and I'm just going to put the hops in a yeast-free zone. That's about it. Lovely bucket full of yeast there. Shame to waste it really, but I haven't got another use for it today, so it's going to go down the drain, I'm afraid. Right, it's time to cask the Pacific Ale. I've got them ready in the tanks here. 2 beers to cask today, Pacific Ale and Angel Pale Ale. And I've got my casks washing behind me, or sanitising I should say. So get them into cask. What I'm going to do is put half cask, half keg actually. So I'm going to put 2/3 into cask, and so that should leave me enough for 2 kegs worth, so we can do some canning as well from the kegs. I think it'll be better as real ales, but they're probably both designed to be keg beers really. Right, that's the Pacific Ale and the Angel Pale Ale, all casked and kegged. I've got 2 kegs from each, and 1 big cask and 2 little casks, so all gone well. I have added finings to the Pacific Ale. Now, that might not be the right thing to do, so some of you viewers in Australia, let me know if that's a mistake, because is this beer supposed to be hazy? I mean, this one's not got much in the way of wheat and oats in it really, just a bit of wheat malt, so perhaps it will clear anyway, but should the style be hazy? You let me know in the comments. I've got here a delicious pint of Tri-Pound. Absolutely clear as a bell, beautiful colour, creamy head, very tight bubbles on the head as well. Smells absolutely amazing. Australian or American hops. Tropical fruit type flavours. Now it's really quite light. It's easy to drink. Quite a light to medium mouthfeel. It just tastes thirst quenching. Really pleased with it. So the original recipe, if you remember, was an emulation of Flamin Galah Pacific Ale. Now, I watched their videos quite carefully and tried to sort of glean the recipe, and I reckon that I got the hops all okay and the Pilsner malt okay, but I wasn't just sure about what the other additions to the grist were, such as wheat and oats. So I guessed, and I think I just settled on some wheat malt. I think it 12%, something like that. And I thought at the time it probably would clear, and it certainly cleared. Now, Flamin Galah advertised their beer as hazy, so it could well be that I've got the grist slightly wrong on this, and it could well be that a Pacific Ale should be hazy. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Can it be clear, or should it be hazy, or can it be either, like some other beers? Anyway, I'm really pleased how this has turned out, because you might call it an anglicisation of a Pacific Ale, in that yes, we're using the hops, but we're putting it in a pint glass, serving it on cask, pulling it through the hand pull, and it does lend itself to that. Of course, it's that kind of a nice beer, in that it's smooth, it likes the creamy head, it's easy to drink, it's light, it's sessionable, it's something that 4%ish we can just throw it down our necks in a British pub. So I think it works really well on cask, but those viewers in Australia and New Zealand may be screaming at the telly saying that I've anglicised it. So let me know what you think about that in the comments, and whether I should be using oats to get a bit of haze in a beer like this, or perhaps a higher percentage of wheat as well. I did, of course, drop the El Dorado, which is what Flamin Galah used, and I used that HPA 4029. I'm not sure if I can judge that hop on this beer, because I've got the American hops in there and the Galaxy as well. So I'm not really sure if it's fair to judge it, but certainly getting some good tropical stuff. Bitterness, by the way, is modest. It's not very bitter at all, but it does taste balanced, and I wouldn't say it was lacking in bitterness. It's just about the right amount, perfectly judged. Not by me, of course, but by Flamin Galah. Now, I've also got this, I've put this on keg as well, and I've canned some as well and sent some out to some fellow home brewers to see what they think. So we can try the keg. I've put it through a nitrogen pouring spout, but it's just on normal gas, just to give it that little bit of a creamy head, just a little bit, so it gets nearer to the cask, but it will be a bit more carbonated. So let's go try that. Well, it's poured with a great big head. Clarity wise, not quite as clear, but it is the start of the keg, so it is sucking it up from the bottom. A little bit more carbonation makes it a little bit more sort of tingly on the tongue and interesting to drink. So I think I could drink this either actually on keg or cask. Naturally, I prefer the cask, but I think that is a pretty good keg beer as well. So it's just a quick one today. So thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments about the oats and wheat and things, and whether it should be hazy, and other hop suggestions for this kind of beer. And until next week, I'll just say it's another frothing ale. Cheers.